Hi everyone, and welcome back to my channel. We finished diving into the Docker Compose file, so I think at this point I want to show you a bit more about what Keycloak and how I've got my settings. Every now and then I will refer back to Keycloak so we understand how I'm using it to control the security flow of the application. But before we dive into Keycloak, I've got the front end running. There isn't much on the front end because I really don't care how it looks like. I do, however, care about the functionality, certain things that I want it to do. And at the moment, the functionality is more of the back end than the front end, because it's only first to work on the back end, make sure the APIs and all that stuff is working, and then there are so many things that we can use the backend services to do for the front end. So I drive from the back to the front, not from the front to the back. So all right, so enough about that talking. So this is the front end. There is not much going on here, but I would at some point dive into how it looks like. I've left quite a lot of stuff. I did not want to go too far, as I already said. But if we run it, if we say ng serve, and that's how you serve it, and I will go into the package.json and all that stuff on its own in its own video at some point. I just want you to take a peek. Look, so we're gonna go to the localhost. So I'm running on Chrome, and yeah, and there you can see that because it's reliant on the Keycloak server, is saying it's not working, and the reason why is because we need to start the backbone. Okay, so if we go to the backend, and we're gonna go to the terminal, and the Docker Compose file is in this folder, the gateway folder. So I'm just going to say Docker Compose app, and if you type Docker Compose app, you need to make sure you've got your Docker running. So I'm just gonna make sure my Docker is running. This is Docker, so you need to make sure you install Docker. I'm gonna run it. Now that I've got it running, I'm just gonna say Docker Compose app, and that should bring the services up, right? And hopefully once Keycloak service is running, and I think by now it should be, then the front end should be fine, right? So here is a quick glance of the front end. Doesn't look like you can see everything, right? So we can see some bits and pieces, but not the full page. But this is a quick one. So I've got a login there. If I want to log in, I can log in. Just log in with a user, PASSWORD. So this user is login, and if I was to get the other services running, then I'll be able to seed some data onto the front end, and then we can see some stuff here, but we're supposed to see some products and stuff like that here. That is not what I want to get through. What I want to get through is localhost, and we want 9098, and we say admin, and we say admin, and that is my password to now you see this thing here is because this particular let me start this again. So now you see this thing right here. Let me just put it right in the middle center. This is my old Keycloak RAM, and I'll talk about RAM in a little while when I cover the Keycloak in depth. This RAM, unfortunately, I mess it up, so I'm gonna be telling you to be careful how when you start using Keycloak. I did mess it up, and I had to delete the volume and database and everything in order to get Keycloak working properly again. So I'm just gonna say close it, right? And then you get a warning to say you need to change the password for admin. The master RAM is something that is the main RAM for Keycloak when you log into Keycloak. So but I've got one already there, so I'm using one RAM. You're supposed to use one RAM for the whole application, because you need the whole. If you set up different types of RAM for one application, you're gonna have problems. You want to use one RAM for all the for one application, and then you set up the roles and the users and everything within that particular application, within that RAM. Okay, so I've got this one RAM here, and the way to create a RAM is to just go like this, create a RAM, and you want to give the RAM a name. Then you have to make sure it's enabled, and then you say create. When you do say create, make sure you go into your RAM, not the master RAM. So I'm gonna click onto my RAM, and you can see my RAM here right at the top left hand corner here, right? And then you create clients. Okay, for me, for this particular application, I've got two clients. I've got Ocean client. This client actually, I'm using it for the backend, because the settings and everything has to be set up for the backend, and I had a lot of problems of this, and I didn't realize until I watched another video, a tutorial, which the guy, I did not notice it in the first round when I was watching that video, but when I went back to look into it, then I realized that he had two clients. Okay, so you need to have two clients, one exactly set up like this for the backend. How did I set up a client? So to set up a client, we go back to client. You create a client this way, right? And then you give the client ID and the name and the description. Okay, I'm not gonna do it again, but whatever ID you want that is related, I tend to give it the ID that I think is related to my option, or something like the application that you want to use, something like that. But otherwise, as long as you can remember, the next time you use this thing and you can see your application, this belongs to this particular application, it just, whatever you want is fine. Then you go to next, right, until you come to this point where so this is for the backend. So and then at some point you have to set up the root URL. I'm setting my root URL as my front end. So this is where is the root URL that you want things to be diverted to, right? So that is the root URL, and you can check what the meaning is here. So normally, like, the root URL is, let's say you type in something that is incorrect, it will divert back to that root URL. So the redirect URL is basically the root URL, yeah, // and that is the recommendation by all the tutorials that I've gone in. And if we want to log out, this is what I've given out, but this, I think, logout redirect URL takes you back to the root URL. Okay, then I did not set this up. I think when you set up Keycloak, set this up automatically. Okay, then this is the most important part. In order to do the backend, the API backend, you want Keycloak to work well for your API backend, you need the client of authentication on. you need authorization, authentication on. Then you need standard flow, direct flow, and service flow. So this is, which means that client has access to username, password, and exchange it directly with Keycloak server for access token. So this is the bit that we log in and then we get the access token. This one is says to this enables standard open-eyed connects direct based authentication with authorization code. So this one is the main thing that you need. But when you select, I think when you select this one comes up. So the roles, service roles, and service accounts and roles, you need that one as well, because this is where roles comes in. All right, and I think the rest of it I've left it. I've got front channel logout on. I've got back channel logout section required. Anyway, these are, I think, defaults. Now when you have these when you have the client of authentication tab on and tab on, when you have that one tab on, you will get the credentials, and this is where you get the client secret, and I will go into why we need a client secret at some point. But you will need this for various activities you're gonna do for your API. All right, so I'm gonna go into the RAM. Right, so at this point I'm gonna end it here, and then we will carry on to part 5, where we will try and finish up this Keycloak, diving looking into Keycloak services settings, and then we will continue after that. All right, so see you on the next video. Bye bye.